what we've done is we've studied the interactions and the chemistry between men and women for a long time. And so we have some ideas that you might be able to use. Number one is that similarities attract. And you've heard this before, similarities attract. And what does this mean? It means because of the law of attraction, we're attracted to people who are similar to ourselves in certain specific ways. And the similarities attract in almost all areas, but especially in the area of values. Remember I said that Ayn Rand wrote that all love is a response to values. We love another person because they represent the values that we most treasure, that we consider to be the most important. I shouldn't say this, I say this out of school, but sometimes my children have asked me, why did you marry Barbara? And I always have one answer. And I say, I married her because of her character. Not that she wasn't a beautiful, attractive, intelligent, wonderful woman, but what I married, because those things will go. A lot of things will go or will change, but I married her because of her character. And I still remember the moment I fell in love with her is when I saw that she had such wonderful character. And that was the most important thing of all. So that's what we're attracted to with another person. We're attracted to values that they seem to espouse. The great disappointment is when they seem to espouse a value and we find out later that they don't actually share that value. That's a real relationship killer. So we have similarities, especially in areas of values, children, attitudes toward children, having children, raising children, and so on. Money is important. Most marriages or relationships break down because of arguments over money. It's the number one killer. Sex, attitudes towards sex. And here's another big discovery, leisure time. Is you'll find that people who are ideally compatible really enjoy doing the same things in their leisure time. I've had friends who've gotten married and she liked to go dancing and he liked to do stamp collecting. And so she'd go out dancing, she'd go out partying, and he'd be working at home on a stamp collection. How long do you think the marriage lasted? Not very long. And unfortunately, children come into a marriage and it's even worse. So you'll find that people who get married like to ski together, they like to go out to dinner together. You'll find that couples who are really compatible in 80% of times will order the same dishes. As they'll say times two, they look at the menu and they look at everything else and finally order the same dishes. They'll have the same thing. And they like the same wines and they like the same activities and they like the same movies in general. So what I found, and I'll talk about this in just a second. No, I'll come to it in a second. I get ahead of myself. Damn, I get so excited. So ask yourself, and you look at this in terms of values. What are your values? That's the core of your personality. How do you feel about children? Many women make the mistake of marrying a man. He says he doesn't want to have any children. Well, most women want to have children. It's a biological drive. And they think, well, he'll change. And they get married and they get stuck into a relationship that lasts for years. And he wasn't kidding. He doesn't want any children. And she does. And sometimes the woman feels that she's wasted her whole reproductive life in a situation where she thought he would change. And she thought he would change a basic value. So one of the first things you do is do an interview. Take them to a zoo, see how they treat the other kids. Anyway, money, sex, leisure time. When you meet the person who is right for you, there will be a chemistry. Khalil Gibran said, there will be a moment of the meeting of the minds, a chemical moment at the first instant of meeting between a man and a woman, or it will never happen. And that's in his book, The Prophet, when they ask him, talk to us of love. And he said, this first answer is, there will be a meeting at the first instant of glance, or it will never happen. And it's quite amazing. People will, their eyes will meet across a crowded room, and they'll be married for the rest of their lives. They may not get married that evening, but they will start to talk to each other and go out with each other and be together forever. And if it's not there, it very seldom comes later. So there's always almost an instant chemistry, and it's very hard to force. It's one thing that you cannot force is the chemistry in a relationship. It feels right because you will be in accord on almost all the critical areas of life. And here's an interesting thing that Napoleon Hill said. He said subconscious minds communicate with other subconscious minds. So you'll meet a person and know nothing about them, but your subconscious minds, your basic values, your core things that you consider important will communicate in that instant. And only later will you find, surprise, surprise, this person likes this, and this person believes in that, and this person has the same background, and so on. You never knew any of that. It was just the eyes meeting. And it was the subconsciousness connecting at 30,000 times the speed of the conscious mind. So this often happens. Sometimes you meet a person, you ever had an experience, you meet a person and you even see them and you just like them. Male or female, you just like them immediately. You have an immediate rapport with that person. And sometimes you meet a person or you see a person and you immediately dislike them. And later on, you'll find out that that instant feeling was well justified. The person that you instantly liked is a really likable person. The person that you instantly had an aversion to is not a good person. You'll have it instantly, almost so fast that you cannot even process it with the conscious mind. Rule is always listen to that gut feeling. Always listen to that intuitive feel that you have for other people. If you ever go against that intuitive feel, then it can be very, very painful and costly, as everybody who's been in business knows. Okay, opposites attract. This is the second principle of relationships, but only in one area, temperament. Nature demands balance. So if there's an outgoing person, they are balanced with an ingoing person. And the way that you can determine this is what is called the talk test. The talk test is everybody likes to talk and everybody likes to listen. Now, an incompatibility occurs when somebody only likes to talk 15% and the other person only likes to talk 15%. So there's huge periods of what are called uncomfortable silences. And this can occur later in a relationship. Have you ever been in a restaurant and seen two people eating and they don't talk? Or you've been driving and there's two people sitting in a car looking straight ahead and they don't talk? This is a sign of incompatibility. Or the worst is when they fight for airtime. It's both people like to talk 80% of the time. Two professional speakers get together and you just can't shut them up. So they're always kind of finishing each other's sentence and tripping each other's words. They don't listen, they cannot talk. So a good relationship is the talk test. Is an easy ebb and flow. It goes back and forth, and you can spend hours in an easy ebb and flow of conversation, subject after subject, with about 10 to 15% of comfortable silences. You're just comfortable. Number three is commitment. In a good relationship, there's a total commitment. There's a thing in relationships called a trading relationship, where people only commit part way. I'll go 50% of the way, you go 50% of the way. The key to a successful relationship is that you go 100%, and both of you go 100%. The overlap is 100%. Because if both of you go 50%, then all that has to happen is a disagreement, and it opens up. It's like a bridge that opens up in the middle, and the relationship can start to collapse. But if you both go 100%, then you can have all kinds of flexibility in the span, if you like, and the relationship is still solid. So total commitment is absolutely important. And that's why if you're not 100% committed to a relationship, then it's not the right thing for you. Fourth is similar self-concepts attract and are most compatible. What does that mean? It means that people will generally be compatible with people who are about as happy as they are. Now it's interesting because you sometimes find miserable couples. Neither one, they're both negative, they both complain all the time, but they're quite compatible. Because they sit there and they complain and grouse and whine and moan and bitch, and that's just their lifestyle, and they watch television, they complain about who's on television and complain about the neighbors. So some people can be happy together even though they're mutually negative. But you will always be most compatible with a person who's about as happy as you are. If you ever try to get involved with a person who's not as happy as you, you're in for a lot of conflict and a lot of problems. Now here's a basic rule, and I've said this before, and the basic rule is people don't change. People don't change their basic self-concepts after they become adults. Now, they may change if there is a significant emotional event. In other words, a miraculous event. Moses does come down from Mount Sinai and lightning strikes and the clouds part and the human being changes, but not bloody likely. So therefore, just accept that if a person is not happy, you're not going to make them happy. The rule is that if a happy person marries an unhappy person, the unhappy person will drag the happy person down. The happy person will not bring the unhappy person up. It just ain't going to happen. And many people think, well, I'm happy, so I'll take this person who's attractive and has a lot of good qualities, and I'll make them happy like me. It just doesn't happen. That person is miserable. It's almost like they're a sea anchor. They will drown the swimmer. No matter how strong the swimmer is, that anchor will eventually pull them under.